the subtitle of this series should just be Ideas that Leanne thought were easy, and then they weren't. Yours sincerely, Much Regret. It's Leanne and welcome to my June TBR. We have hit month 6 of my hashtag year of readathons, and you guys have been asking me if I'm going to keep doing this, if this is going to be my TBR game forever. And you know what, before this month I think I might have said yes, and now my relationship with this entire series is like Facebook official, it's complicated. May was a particularly bad mental health month in Shea Diversions, and so I thought to myself, I'm going to be gentle with myself for my June TBR. Whilst hiding from all of my problems, I read more books in May than I've read in a really long time. I wanted to keep that energy rolling into June. And this month I decided to spell my name out with my TBR. I assumed that because I'd been doing it all my life, it would be easy to create a TBR consisting of 6 letters, but apparently not. My name, in case you've never seen it written down, is Lianne. Oddest form of that name that you will ever see. I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. I have years of childhood trauma over never being able to get my name on a hat, a coin purse, t-shirt, keyring, anything would have done. But these letters don't seem to me to be particularly enigmatic. The E might be a little bit troubling, maybe the I. Turns out no, those two were fine. It was all of the rest of them. And because this game was so difficult, there's actually no footage of me this month running around my shelves like a blue-arsed fly, because I spent so long doing it that it was essentially my entire afternoon yesterday, my whole afternoon into the evening, looking for books. I wasn't giving up. Have you met me? If you cut me, do I not bleed competition? And to make all of this just a little bit more complicated for myself, I am taking part in Whatever-a-thon this month. If you have not heard of Whatever-a-thon, I am going to assume that you have been living under a rock, and I will link you to the announcement video and the instructions for it down below. The rules are very complicated, but essentially you pick a team which fits with the things that you read. In my case, I am Team Comrades of Chaos, which is like every genre that doesn't fit into all of the other ones, and you pledge to read a certain amount of books for your team, whilst also trying to hit some of the prompts, which look like this. So not only have I decided that we're doing 6 books instead of 5 for my stacket this month, but 4 of them also have to cover prompts. I don't know why I do it to myself either. And so without further ado, let's get on with it, shall we? First up, we are looking for the letter L. I would rate this one as moderate difficulty. I found a few books on my shelves that began with L, but one of the trends that I noticed was that I had a lot of them that started with the word love. Like, an awful lot of them that started with the word love. And as soon as I tell you guys what this book is about, I know that you're gonna know why I'm avoiding it. Love in Colour is a celebration of love. It's about black love and it's contemporary. It's a series of short stories. If you've been on my channel for a long time, you'll know that short stories terrify me. My most hated part in books is starting books. I usually hate reading for the first 30 pages because I don't know where I am, I don't know any of the people, and I don't yet know why I should care about them. And the problem with short stories, that it is literally that same process, that same 30 pages, over and over and over again, except when you finally find out why you should love this person, they end. They just stop. They're finished. They're gone. Those people are gone. And I hate it. And yet there have been short stories in my life which have made such a massive impact on me. Short stories that I still think about to this day. So it's not that I don't occasionally find an absolute gem. Just getting to that gem feels like literal mining through rock face. So I think that it's fitting that I have picked Love in Colour because I have it in physical format. That means it's the first book on my actual physical stack it for this month. In case you're new here, every month I play Stack It as an extra little TBR game. I pick 5 physical books from my shelves, I put them in a stack, and I have to read from the top to the bottom. If I skip any books in between, it means that I have to unhaul them because chances are that if I don't want to read them now, I'm never going to want to read them. And I also get one flip of the stack so I can turn it over at some point if I really can't get through it. And I own Love in Colour in hardback. I bought it in hardback when it first came out because I was so excited. Then I didn't touch it again. So yeah, it's probably a good thing that it's on Stack It because Otherwise I'm never going to pick up. Never. Next up, we have the letter I. I rate... For the rest of this segment, anytime I say I, it's no longer going to have any meaning. I would rate the letter I as having very low difficulty as it happens. I was genuinely expecting this one to be one that I like racked my shelves for, dug through my Kindle. But as it turns out, I had loads of them. And the one that I decided to go for is one that I have been very excited for since it arrived in my house, and that is Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. You guys are well aware by this point that I absolutely love Lisa Jewell. The Family Upstairs is one of my favourite thrillers of all time. I recently told you so in my top 10 thrillers of all time. I'll link that down below in case you haven't seen it. Her writing style just completely works for me. It's really atmospheric, but it's also really page-turny and snappy. I fall in love with all of her characters, even the really problematic ones, which is necessary for a thriller. And this one doesn't sound like it's going to be any exception to that rule. The back says, "You don't see her, but she sees you." Midnight. In an area of urban wasteland where cats hunt and foxes shriek, a girl is watching. When Sapphire Maddox was 10, something terrible happened, and she's carried the pain of it ever since. The man she thought was going to heal her didn't, and now she hides, learning his secrets, invisible in the shadows. Oliver Pick is invisible too. He's never had a girlfriend, he's never even had a friend. Nobody sees him, nobody cares. But when Sapphire goes missing from opposite his house on Valentine's night, suddenly the world seems to be watching Owen, accusing him, holding him responsible for Sapphire's disappearance. I had a quick flick through, and this one does indeed jump about to different points of view, which The Family Upstairs also did and was one of my absolute favourite things. So here we go. So this is the second book on my stack it, but it is only the first book that can count towards my team for whatever-a-thon. Love in Colour is unfortunately a contemporary love story, so I can't count that one, but I will be counting this. And I'm going to count this one for 2 prompts, because the more prompts you tick off, the more points that you get. So I'm counting this for not only hauled in the past year, because it definitely has been, but also for my 5-star prediction, because it's Lisa Jewell, so chances are 5 stars is definitely what it's going to be. I also think that it's fortuitous that it's the second book on this TBR, because realistically, after Love in Colour, I might need something that I can sink myself into and not worry about it ending in 5 pages, because this is like 400 and odd pages. It's a chunky thriller. I like it. Next up, we have the letter A. I knew this one wasn't going to be very much of a problem. I would rate this letter as difficulty very easy. Lots of books just start with the letter A as its own word, like Closed in Common Orbit, for example. So I decided, because I was still naive at this point in the picking process, everything was going quite easily. I decided to make it a rule that I had to pick up a book that started with the letter A that was not its own word. Like, I don't know, the thing that popped to mind was The Atonement, but don't read that, it's an awful book. So the book that I decided on was Allegedly. If you watched my most recent book haul, you will know that this book just recently came into my house and that I am super excited about it. But one of the things that I am very prone to doing is taking books that I am very excited about and parking them on a shelf after a haul and not picking them up, because I'm keeping them for that perfect time when I want to be really excited, but then slowly as time goes on the hype starts to eat away at me and the pressure builds and they just sit there forever, getting dusty and bitter. So instead of letting this one have the same sad fate, here it is. Now technically this one has a foot in a couple of different genres. I would call it a thriller because of the subject matter, but it is also YA and it is technically also contemporary. So I'm still going to count this for my whatever-a-thon TBR. But I guess if you were in Camp Contemporary and you wanted to read this, you could probably count it for that too. This is about Mary. When she was a little girl, she was accused of killing a white baby and she was sent to juvenile jail. She spent 6 years there, not talking to detectives, not filling in any blanks in the story, not explaining in any way what happened to her or the baby on that night. She's now been released, she's living in a group home and she's in love with a guy, Ted, and pregnant with her own baby. But because of Mary's history, the state is now threatening to take away her baby as soon as it is born. The only way that Mary will get to keep her baby as if she exonerates herself, as if she tells the truth. But then the end of the blurb says, when the state threatens to take her baby, Mary's fate lies in the hands of the one person she distrusts the most, her mama. No one knows the real mama, but does anyone know the real Mary? And for whatever-a-thon, this one only hits one prompt for me, and that is person of colour recommendation. I tried to make it fit in for others, but it didn't. So here we are. And now here is where it all started to come off the rails. Because you see, I found it really, really difficult to find books starting with N. M is apparently the most common letter in the entire alphabet to be on the spine of a book, but N, not so much. The only places that I could find the letter N was on fantasy books that I had already read, and so I couldn't count it for my whatever-a-thon TBR. And by this point I was getting a little bit concerned. You know how I said I spent like a whole afternoon into the evening looking for books? It was just looking for these 2 N books. 1 letter, 2 books, whole afternoon. But I finally managed to find them. May have lost my sanity and some hair in the process, but we got there. So as a result of this, I would rate the letter N near to impossible. See all the N puns that I'm now able to make? Because I've thought of all of them, literally all of them. So the first book that I picked for my first letter N was Nothing Good Could Come of This. Nothing good will come of next door's dog if it does not stop barking. Ma'am! Nothing good can come of this was hidden away on my non-fiction shelves. This is a memoir by Kirsti Coulter about how she stopped drinking. Because Kirsti didn't like slowly come to terms with her alcoholism over many years, she just one day decided to stop. And the results of that changed the way that she looked at her entire life. This book actually comes off the back of an article that Kirsti Coulter wrote about this, which both really made some people, lots of people, very happy and very inspired, and really made lots of other people exceptionally angry. And I want to find out what in here could possibly have caused that kind of reaction, especially because this book is so tiny, but also because it says on the back, and when you finally remove those rosy coloured glasses, you see that many of the women around you are tanked. At work, at home, at yoga, and that booze is the oil keeping their motors purring when they could be making other kinds of noise. Hell yes for a feminist memoir about alcoholism and the way that it's kind of seeped into our everyday culture and made itself a home there. I don't think I've gone to a single social event in the last 10 years where people haven't said, are you sure you don't want another one? Are you positive you don't want another one? Or my absolute favourite, oh, have you given up drinking? Are you on a detox? Well done you! Like no other alternative exists for this. So I'm very pleased to be finally picking this one up because I think I've had it for about a year on my shelves. So I'm going to count this one for 2 prompts. First of all, I have got mental health representation, and secondly, I've got having my team's colours on it. My team's colour is pink, and although this is showing up really red on camera, it's actually a very faded sort of fuchsia with some coral tones in it, so I'm definitely counting this as pink. To me, at this point, I can't get any more stressed. I have no fucks left to give. Now for the next N. After my high and low search, when all I wanted was chocolate and to lie on the couch and feel sorry for myself, when I realised I was not going to be filming that video that day, I delved into my Kindle. And thankfully, my graveyard of books provided me with what might actually be an absolute gem. This is The Nowhere Girl by Christian White. This came out in 2018 and I had to search quite far into my Kindle for it, so I can only assume that it's maybe been on my Kindle for that long. Usually I have like a mental link in my head with books where I can be like, oh, so-and-so told me about that, or I saw that on this person's video, or I picked that up randomly one day in a bookshop. But not so much with this one, and I wonder if the reason why this one ended up sitting on my Kindle for so long is because on the surface it sounds like a missing child thriller, but I don't really think that it is. Also, it's by an Australian author and it's set in Australia, so that could be another reason why I've picked it up, because you guys know that I love Australian thrillers. So this one is about Kimberly. She is a photography teacher, and 26 years ago, while being photographed in her studio, a 2-year-old child went missing. The police were never able to find any leads. That 2-year-old child vanished without a trace, and Kimberly has felt guilty about it since then. She spent her entire life skimming news articles and keeping an eye out just in case there might somewhere be a lead. Then one day, out of the blue, Kimberly gets a phone call from a girl who is exactly the right age and who genuinely believes that she was that kidnapped child. As Kimberly starts to investigate, she discovers that this case is far more complicated than she could ever have assumed, and that this might not stop at just one missing child. The blurb also says that in order to solve this abduction, she will have to delve deep into the dark heart of religious fanaticism, which are not words that I expected to be associated with the rest of that blurb. So unfortunately, I cannot actually count this for my Stack It TBR for this month because it is on my Kindle. It is digital, but I can count it for whatever-a-thon. I'm going to count it for 2 prompts. The first one is the author's debut, and the second one is a TBR game. I was so pleased when I watched the lovely Becca's Bookopoly for this month because she rolled other, and this definitely fits into other, so I'm taking it. The tenuous link, but I'm having it. Let me have my short-lived victory. Thank you. That's it. That's the ends. The ends are done. Now we move on to the E. So I would rate the letter E as medium difficulty. First of all, there are very few books that just start with E. Most of them start with the E something. By this point in the game, I had had enough, so I have discounted the word the. The word the no longer exists for this particular letter E. But the one that I ultimately went with, because I seem to be on a bit of a thriller binge this month, is The Escape Room. This is another one that has been on my shelf for a really, really long time. The main reason for that is because I think it's probably a trash thriller. Now don't make that face, because you know exactly what kind of thriller I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind where you not so secretly hate all of the characters and the writing's fine, but secretly you would quite like for bad things to happen to all of them. And if there's a twist, most of the time you either saw it coming or you're just like, well, that was a twist. It has been picked up by quite a few of my thrillery pals, and none of them had that many things to say about it. In fact, the general consensus seems to be meh. So I think this is a good opportunity to try getting it off of my shelves. So it says on the back, honestly, I can't get over the synopsis for this one. On Wall Street, Vincent, Jules, Sylvie and Sam, I hate them all already, are the ultimate high flyers. Getting rich is all that matters, and they'll do anything to get ahead. When the 4 of them become trapped in an elevator escape room, things go horribly wrong, and the dark secrets of their team are laid bare. They are made to answer for profiting from a workplace where deception, intimidation and sexual harassment thrive. The escape room's clues turn more and more deadly. If they want to survive, they'll have to solve one more final puzzle. Which one of them is the killer? I don't even know where to start. I mean, it kind of gives the twist away maybe on the back of the book, but also who realistically set up an escape room in an elevator, and why did they choose an elevator? I don't know. I'm sure all of the answers will be herein, and I will either tell you about them or be able to tell you nothing because I will have thrown it in the bin. Now this one is counting towards my Stack It TBR, but it is not counting towards my Whatever-a-thon TBR because my Whatever-a-thon TBR is only 4 books long. So this is book 5 for my Stack It TBR. We are now finished with Stack It for this month with all of my mandatory picks, and we also managed to complete off my 4 books that I have pledged for Whatever-a-thon. So now on to other commitments and fun things. First up, we've got a book that I am super excited for an event that I am super excited for. If you guys have been keeping an eye on my channel page, you may have noticed that on the 18th of June I am going to be interviewing Benjamin Dean. Benjamin wrote Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow, which is a middle grade contemporary book which very, very much fits in for Pride Month. This one is about Archie, and more than anything else in his life, he just wants everything to go back to normal. But he has become certain about 2 facts. The first is that his mum and dad hate each other, and he doesn't know why. And the second is that they're keeping a huge secret from him, and he needs to find out what it is. But when he overhears his dad's secret, he realises that his life will never be the same again. Not ever. And this colourful leaflet for a colourful event which has fallen out of his dad's pocket leads him and his friends on an adventure, all the way to supporting his dad at the end of the rainbow. I'm super excited to read this and to chat with Ben. If you guys have questions that you would like to submit for Ben, I'm going to be popping something up on my Instagram in the next week or so that you can do that. And keep your eyes peeled on my Instagram because there will also be a giveaway for this book around about the same time to celebrate the event. Next up in June, I have my Patreon pick. Every month my patrons get to vote on a book that I will read that month, and this month they overwhelmingly picked another book that is on my most intimidating TBR because they love me so much. The overwhelming result for this one was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I recently read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid and absolutely fell in love with it. I'm really excited for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I'm also terrified about it because like everybody loves it. Everybody. I haven't spoken to a single person who dislikes this book in any way, and that's terrifying because what if I don't like it? But it's also a perfect time for it to come up because I have just picked up Malibu Rising, and Malibu Rising is a kind of like spin-off about a group of people featured in The Seven Husbands, and so I want to read this one before I read that one, you know? And finally, for my actual concrete June TBR, I have a buddy read that is going on in my Patreon Discord. My Discord is fairly new for my Patreon, but all of my patrons get access to it, and we have decided that we're going to do some really casual buddy reads on there. Kind of in place of a traditional book club, like dip in if you would like, you can skip it if it's not your genre. And this month we are picking up 3 Hours by Rosamund Lupton. You will probably be able to tell from the fact that I have put my Taylor Swift bookmark right in the middle of this book that I have already started it. I in fact started it on sprints on like the 31st, I think, and I would have eaten it in one bite if it were not for the fact that I don't have time. Absolutely obsessed with this. This is one of those ones that I regret sitting on my shelves for so long. I've had this since like last October or something, and I'm not gonna lie. The covers of Rosamund Lupton's books leave a lot to be desired. Y'all are doing her dirty, Penguin, because this is just, it's not inspiring, it's not intriguing, it's not making me want to pick it up. It in fact makes me want to throw it in the trash pile with other potentially trash thrillers. But this is not that. This in fact may very well be the best thriller that I have read in years. As the title suggests, this is a thriller that takes place over the course of 3 hours, so every chapter has a timestamp on it. We are in the middle of rural Somerset in a very open-minded, inclusive, progressive private school where a shooter has walked into the corridors. The school is now in lockdown and it is split into various different buildings, pockets of people who have very different views about what's going on. And I really cannot tell you any more about this because anything would be a spoiler. It's almost bang on 300 pages, so it's a perfect sized thriller. But really, if you're looking for something that grabs you from the absolute first page, this is going to be it. Well, this has been a month. This was a choice that will not be repeated. If we do stick with my Year of Readathons project and we carry it on into the future, this is not a round that I will be doing again. Take me back to like Taboo or something. So, as always, are there any books on my TBR which you guys have read that you really, really liked or that you really, really didn't? We like opinions, so please leave some down below. Are there any books on my TBR that you're now considering picking up for yourself? Is this one of them? Are you going to get it for Pride Month? You really should. And if you have any recommendations based on any of the books that I have mentioned here in my TBR today, then please, please give them to me because next month I can buy books! More on that coming soon. If you have liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It will help it to reach more bookish people. And if you're one of those new bookish people and you have enjoyed this torture session of a video, then please consider subscribing for more. I do this to myself every month. And I will speak to you all soon, guys. Bye! I'm gonna go put on some Factor 50 now because that's the only way I can survive in the sun. But she wants it, precious.